So last week I did a stream on Twitch where I was painting the green skin on the dragons, and the original plan was for me to edit that video and put it on YouTube really fast, and I recorded that on Saturday and I recorded the rest of it offline and everything, but on Sunday I ended up going and getting tested, and I found out I had COVID, so I've been in bed most of the week. So here's the edit on that video. It's gonna be rough. I haven't had a chance to go back and redo any of this video or anything like that, and I'm just putting together what I've got, so here we go. So starting right off the bat, off the camera, that was awesome. Basically just primed the whole skin area, the green skin area, with Death Guard green. On the body I actually shot it with an airbrush. On the wings you can tell that I actually used a brush. It gets a little spottier, but on the wings I sort of wanted that. So then we took Athonian camo shade, forgot what paint I used, and we just went around everything. You can see we're not putting it on real thick. We're just making sure that we got good coverage. We don't want it blobbing everywhere, but we definitely want it settling in those recesses and starting our dark lining. So we go everywhere that the green is and follow the whole model on the body, just watching on the tail. The lighter parts, the white balance on this thing blows it out, but that is Wraithbone. It looks just ultra white, but it's actually Wraithbone, so it's sort of a cream color. I'm sure you could prime it Wraithbone, but that stuff's real expensive, and trying to find it right now is next to impossible. So just starting off with Death Guard green, Wraithbone for the skin parts, and going through with Athonian camo shade and hit everywhere where the green is. So for the inside of the wing, we've got a it's like 6-to-1 mix of Skeleton Horde and Lamian medium, contrast Lamian medium, and we're going to take that and we're going to run that over where those little skin bits are on the wing and on the back side and on the inside of the arms. Don't want it real thick, don't want it real dark. We don't want it crazy dark. I'm sure you could thin it down with water too, but if you've got the contrast medium, it tends to do better. If you put water to contrast, it breaks it too quick, and you're fine, and then it's just busted. So putting it on there, try not to get real big pools. You're going to get some pooling in the lower areas, but just go across the whole area. Any part where that Wraithbone is that you want that skin look, do that. So once I'm done with putting that on the wings, we'll go back to the body of the dragon. We're going to go back to the Death Guard green, and we're just going to take a small dry brush. We're going to put some on the brush because that's the first time we're loading up, and we're going to knock a bunch of that off, and we're just going to go everywhere on the model over it again. It'll knock all that green back to where it really looks like you black lined it almost, but we're going to go across everything. I did leave this thing sub-assembled, so the front legs are poster puttied on so you can pull those off easier, but we're going to go back over and dry brush everything. This is after the first coat of Athonian camo shade. So going back after we've done the dry brush on all the green parts, we're going to go back and do one more layer of Athonian camo shade across all the green. The only part that I skip is the back side of the wing, the actual thing between the little riblet finger things on the wing. Skip that because I want that to end up lighter than the rest of the dragon. So there's only one coat of Athonian camo shade across the top of the wings. Every place else gets at least 2, maybe 3, sometimes 4 coats, and you'll see it to really start to pick up on this now. Those darker spots will really darken up, and you'll get that separation between your scales and all the muscles and cording and fingers and all that. So you can sort of see on this wing where I've gone back and the finger arm bones I've gone back and hit with the Athonian camo shade a second time. Like I said, I left the top of the wing just as it was. It's just got one coat of camo shade and across it, and that way it'll end up lighter. Go back, touch the head, that's the second coat on it. Now we're going back after the first dry brush, and we're going to start putting the Athonian camo shade in the darker areas that we want. We don't want this absolutely everywhere. We're just going to go and really, as I just roll right off the camera, we're going to go and put this into those darker recesses and stuff. We're going to start brightening up the color on it. Much thinner this time. Well, we're still going everywhere, but we're going to go back. This is coat number 2 over top of that dry brush. So yeah, we're just going to do a thin coat over everything on this one. So now once we've got that second coat on, we're going to grab some Ogren camo. And we're just going to hit those upper parts, the darker parts that we've already done. For a second time, we're going to go back across that and hit those. Go across the wings. Once we have that coat of Ogren camo, we're going to go back over the top of it with a thing of Athonian camo shade, darken it up some more. Again, sorry for the camera work. I was already starting to feel it, and I really didn't notice that I was pulling off the camera this much. This second wing we hadn't put I believe this is just the second coat of camo shade on this wing. You'll end up with one more on top of it with Ogren. So once everything's set, we're going to go back to the wings. We're going to grab some of that wraith bone that we started off, that we did as original base coat, and we're going to go back into the center of the fleshy part. We don't want too much. We don't want it to really coat. We want it to sort of see the coat that we put underneath it. We want that to sort of see through it, but you're going to go back and hit that. I'm trying to clean off my dry brush there. Apparently there was a little bit of green in it, and it was showing through in the wraith bone. So went through, cleaned that out. We're back working on that. Make sure that your dry brush is pretty well dry, but just go through and hit those spots. If you did have it pooled, this is a spot where you can sort of fix that. You can hit those little pooled spots and smooth those out. Don't press too hard because you'll end up taking the paint off, but gentle pressure, go back and forth. It takes a while, build it up slowly. So once that's done, we're going to grab some pallid witch flesh. Can't really see it there on the thing because all the white balance sucks. We're going to make sure that this doesn't have a whole lot on the brush because this will override everything. So use it really light and build it up really slow and just keep going back and forth and hit it until you get the effect that you like. So on the body of the dragon, I forgot to do the skeleton horde early, so I went back and apparently off camera put all the skeleton horde on the fleshy bits. Same thing that you did on the wings, just want it light, don't want it too dark. Just do it all across it. It gets those little details, gets in the spots between the scales and stuff, and those, especially like on the tail, it breaks it out pretty nice. So we'll go back to Ogren Camo. Get that on the brush, work it in. And we're going to start hitting the lighter parts that we want. So Ogren Camo across the face. Then on the main body, we're going to just go for those higher spots. Across the shoulders, through that ridge line on the neck, through the ribs. And then as it goes down the tail, we're going to just go for that center bit, leaving the very top and the very bottom edges darker. We're trying not to go over them too much. They might get hit a little bit, but that's fine. Go across the fingers and all that to where it starts picking that out just a little bit. Same for the wings. We're going to go back across that. We're going to treat them just like the rest of the skin on the model. Going to go back to the Death Guard green a little bit. And we hadn't really touched the webbing on this, so now we're going to go through here and we're going to start going back with that Death Guard green and hit that a little bit. You can tell that it really starts to smooth it out as you go across the web on the back side of the wing. So once we've got the Death Guard, we're going to go back to our Ogren green on our dry brush. We're just going to go right back over the top of that. We're not hitting it with camo shade or anything like that. We're just going right over the top. Key to it is just do it light, so there's not a whole lot on there, and you can always put more on, but you can't take any back off. So just take your time, go back and forth. Don't push too hard because you don't want it to start knocking paint off on the edges and the corners and stuff. So, and again, sorry about this being all off the camera there at the bottom. So I go back to the first wing and hit it with a little more Ogren because I didn't like it quite as dark as it was, so I went back with that a little bit more. So now I'm taking, I believe that's going to be skeleton bone, or no, screaming skull. Take screaming skull, and I'm going to hit the high highlights on that. So a little bit on the face, a little bit through the arms, a little bit through the ribs, down the tail, just barely hitting it with this. You can see that it pops really, really fast. And it will get away from you really, really fast if you don't watch out. just doing this on the darker bits. And then we're going to take Lamenter's yellow. It's a yellow shade. I don't know if you could do it with the contrast yellow, but because I believe that has a little orange in it. But we're going to wipe it off and just put a very, very, very thin coat across where we went with the skeleton horde. And it's, for some reason, that yellow makes the green really stand out. You don't want too much. You don't really want it to even notice that it's yellow on there. Just a little bit, wipe it off, and then run your brush across there. It'll pick up those highlights really fast with that skeleton horde, or skeleton, screaming skull. Jeez, yeah, I'm losing it. Any of the bone colors, I guess, would work, but any of that skin, you just go across there. You don't want this across absolutely everything. You just go across the more pronounced areas. And of course, you're going to do it to the head also, but we're going to do it off camera, so. So we're going to go back to the wraith bone, and what we're going to do is we're going to go across the little sections on the body. It's pretty much impossible to do it with a dry brush, so what we're going to do is go right off camera and put very little bit on our brush, and you sort of want it as almost like a dry brush, but it's just too fine a point to try to get in there with a dry brush. Just use a little bit on there, run it across, give some highlights, give some edge highlights on the skin parts that are across the body. If you try to dry brush it, I think you'd end up just smearing it across all your green, and all that would be mixed up, and yeah, you don't want that. Just remember, keep it real thin and then move it toward where you want the most. So if on the base of the tail, which I'm painting off screen, starting on the outer edge, working toward the middle, pulling that paint toward the center, because that's going to be the brighter spot. Now we might actually be able to see it as I go across. Of course not. There we go. So starting at the green, working toward the center to get that up. Like I said, it's really, really thin, so a bunch of that stuff's still showing from the inside, or still showing from the underside that we just did. Gonna go back, and we're gonna do the same thing with our pallid witch flesh, which is what we used underneath on the bottom side of the wings. We're going to do the same thing right down the center. We're going to give it that little extra pop, and of course I'm going to do it off camera. By this point I was starting to feel, I knew something was wrong. My sinuses weren't acting real good, so I was definitely, by this point painting, I was definitely not feeling good. So we're going to come back with our Athonian camo shade, and those top scales, we're just going to pound the crap out of those. We want those darker than the rest, so we're going to go back over the top of them, and it's, yeah, I'm hitting the arms, those larger scales that we want darker. I'm just going to go back over and give them a couple more coats with the Athonian camo shade. It'll darken them out, almost make them like a blacky green. Yeah, that's a word. Just go with it now. Same thing on the rear legs, those larger scales, we're just going to give another coat. We'll give those a couple of passes to get them much darker than the rest of the model. I forgot, right there along the bottom, those center scales, we'll get those two. Run right there along the base of the tail. So once you've put enough layers on those scales to where you got them where you want them, that's the end of it. We're just gonna poster putty this joker together real quick so you can see what it looks like. But that's it. That's the end of the underbelly and the top of the scales. We're gonna put that together, or at least we're gonna try, because the wing kept falling off. But that's that's it for the skin. Once you get done with that, you can do whatever you want with the armor and everything to start tying that into your army. And that's what we've got. So this is what you end up with once you have the rider and everything on there. Like I said, you can barely even tell that yellow's in there. The hair, I guess, right there at the top of his head and the back of his arms, that's was it Skaven Blight Dinge with a wash of Athonian camo shade across it just to sort of tie it in, and then a little bit of Nuln Oil on top of it. But it's sort of hard to get it to focus. There we go, across the wings and everything. Once you knock out your rider and everything, it ties it into that whatever army you've got going. So that's it. That's how I did the green skin. Hope that helps. When I posted the pictures, a bunch of folks asked for video on it, so sorry it took so long. Sorry about the voice and the camera. I'm trying to get back into making the videos and trying to get the production quality up, but being sick does not help. So hope that helps. If you could, hit subscribe, hit the bell thing. You know what to do. It's YouTube. It's the same thing as everybody else. So thanks for watching, and have a great one. Go paint something.